Pues para Nomadesc y para la Universidad Intercultural de los Pueblos, realmente es muy importante estar acá, conocer de las experiencias de otros amigos, hermanos de otros países, de otros continentes, y también contar un poco lo que ha sido nuestra experiencia en relación con la pedagogía popular, pero también en relación con la resistencia y la lucha de los pueblos en Colombia.
So, good afternoon, compañeros and compañeras. A big greeting from Nomadesc in Colombia and from the Intercultural University of the Peoples. For us, it is very important to be here, first and foremost, to hear other experiences from comrades from around the world and to share experiences, and also to be able to give you some of our own experiences of popular pedagogy and of the resistance of peoples across Colombia.
Llegar a este proceso de Universidad Intercultural de los Pueblos ha sido un caminar muy largo y un caminar en el cual nos hemos encontrado con Mario, con Patrick, con Warren, con Andy y con mucha gente cercana que ha sumado sus conocimientos para poder hoy decir que hay 30 organizaciones del suroccidente colombiano que estamos soñando con un proceso pedagógico que ponga en debate a la academia oficial, que ponga en debate el papel de la educación en el mundo.
So to say today and be able to stand in front of you and talk about the Intercultural University of the Peoples, it has been a long journey and a long walk together, along which journey we have met with many people inside Colombia and outside, people such as Mario Novelli, such as Patrick, such as organizations like War on Want, Andy Higginbottom, and many, many more people along the way. And it is a process for us which is about building knowledge together. It's a process which allows us now today to say that we have 30 organizations and movements across the southwest of Colombia who have come together to dream of a different type of knowledge production process, a different type of pedagogical process, which is able to put into debate what does academia mean, what does actual education for change mean.
Agradezco mucho al equipo coordinador que hubiera colocado el nombre de experiencias radicales, porque sí somos radicales, y ser radical es ir a la raíz. Y así es como comienza la historia de la Universidad Intercultural de los Pueblos.
And I'm very grateful to the organizers that they've put the word radical into the title of this event, because we are radical. And to be radical is to go back to the roots. And this is where we can start talking about the roots. We can go back and look at the process of how the University of the Peoples came about.
Hay una filosofía de las comunidades indígenas nazas en Colombia, que son una de las comunidades más guerreras, que han resistido 524 años y que hoy siguen luchando. Y quiero que esa frase, que la va a traducir Patrick, realmente quede como en la mente de nosotros, porque esa es parte de la filosofía de la universidad. Y dice, la palabra sin acción es vacía. La acción sin la palabra es ciega. La palabra y la acción por fuera del espíritu de la comunidad son la muerte.
So there's a phrase which we had put on here but hasn't come up, which is something that our most militant aspects of the indigenous peoples in community, the NASA people, will say, which I think is very apt for some of the conversations that we're having this afternoon, and that is the translation would be that the word without action is empty, action without word is blind, and word and action together but outside of the spirit of community are deaf.
Y yo creo que es un debate que no ha resuelto la humanidad, y es el debate entre la teoría y la práctica, porque los académicos se quedan dentro de las universidades, dentro de sus recintos, teorizando sobre algo que está transcurriendo todos los días y que ellos no conocen. En el caso colombiano, muchos de los violentólogos, de quienes se atreven a hablar de la violencia en Colombia, lo hacen producto de lo que dicen los periódicos o de lo que sale en los medios de televisión.
And this is a debate that I think is very important to have. It's the constant debate about theory and practice and the relationship between them. We know that many academics who write about the world out there and who write about processes of social change or about violence write from inside of the institutions without being rooted in the processes that are going on outside. In the case of Colombia, we often see people who write about the nature of the violence in Colombia, who are supposed experts, who base what they write on what they see in the media and on what they see in the television.
Para las organizaciones de base que estamos construyendo el sueño de Universidad Intercultural de los Pueblos, esto nos ha llevado más o menos unos 30 años de ejercicio pedagógico.
For the social movements and organizations that are today part of the University of the Peoples, this has been a process of 30 years of building up our pedagogical processes and experiences.
Y es un proceso que necesariamente tiene que ver con el conflicto, con el colonialismo y con el modelo económico implantado en nuestra América Latina.
And it's a process which naturally it has to do with and is shaped by the Colombian armed conflict, by colonialism, and by the economic model which has been imposed upon Latin America.
Colombia es el país que aún tiene, digamos, dos guerrillas muy fuertes, una guerrilla un poco más débil, que se encuentra en un proceso de paz, pero que está muy crudo, y que es la entrada a América del Sur, donde se vivieron en los años 60 y 70, por aquí habían unos compañeros que han trabajado en Nicaragua y en otras partes, que pudieron conocer lo que fue la guerra en Centroamérica y que obviamente se refleja en lo que ha sido el conflicto social y armado en Colombia durante, algunos dicen, 60 años. Yo soy de la idea de que llevamos más de un siglo, porque la violencia en Colombia inicia cuando las grandes multinacionales entran, asesinan trabajadores, violan derechos de las comunidades, controlan el territorio, y ahí es donde se desprende toda una serie de situaciones complejas que hoy obviamente tienen a Colombia en esa contradicción entre el sí y no a la paz.
So Colombia is a country which still today has 3 active armed guerrilla movements, 2 very strong guerrilla movements, and one weaker one. You'll all be aware that we are going through a peace negotiation, a very delicate peace negotiation at the moment. But it's also important to look at Colombia in a broader the context. This links us to, for example, Central America, where we've had guerrilla movements there. We know there are some comrades here from who've spent a lot of time in Central America today, and so the dynamics that we've seen of an armed guerrilla movement also shape the reality that we face today. From the 1960s and 70s onwards, we've had many guerrillas in the country. A lot of people talk about the current conflict going back 50 to 60 years. But I always say that it actually goes back to the start of the last century, which is when you had the start of big multinational companies, particularly from the United States, entering into Colombian territory, being involved in large massacres, being involved in assassinations, and actually controlling territories. And this is, for us, this is what you have to go back to if you want to understand the very complex referendum and the very complex peace process which we've had now, which was boiled down to into a question of yes or no on a peace agreement.
Este mapa fue un ejercicio de cartografía que hicimos en el año 98 con el Sindicato Minero de Colombia, Sintraminercol. Ese sindicato desapareció producto de la represión. Y en él tratábamos de indicar un poco cuáles eran las causas estructurales del conflicto en Colombia, que estaban directamente ligadas con la riqueza del país. Ustedes ven ahí dónde está el oro, dónde está el petróleo, dónde está el agua, y ahí, en esos lugares estratégicos, geopolíticamente importantes para nosotros, es donde se cometieron o se siguen cometiendo los peores horrores que la humanidad pueda conocer.
So this map that you can see here is an exercise which we did back in 1998, a cartography. It was done with a Colombian trade union called Sintra Minercol, which no longer exists because of it was basically exterminated, the violence against it. And what this exercise was about was showing some of the structural causes of the Colombian conflict. This map shows not only the different types of violence that are going on in the different areas, but it also shows the areas, how these coincide with Colombia's natural wealth, whether it's petrol, whether it's gold, whether it's the water sources which we have. And this map goes some way to explaining the strategic economic interests which exist over Colombia and over the Colombian territory.
Por eso nosotros, y muy acorde con lo que tú decías ahora, creemos que quien conoce la historia, quien no conoce la historia, está condenado a repetirla. Y conocer esta historia de Colombia nos ubica quiénes, cuándo, cómo, por qué adelantaron un proceso de barbarie que desarticuló el movimiento social, rompió el tejido social y nos mantiene en una permanente violencia.
So we agree with Aziz earlier on when he said, when he was inferring that to not know your history is to be condemned to repeat your history. We think it is very important to know what has happened to your previous struggles, and that means talking about the question, asking who, when, how, and why, what has gone on in the past. And that also means that understanding the repression. We look at the current state of our movements in Colombia, we understand that the levels of barbarity, the levels of violence have had a huge impact on not just our movements, but also on the social fabric of our country. And that this is the context in which we find ourselves in social movements.
Yo no soy muy amiga de las estadísticas, pero creo que a veces es necesario hablar de números, hablar de estadísticas, porque si vemos desde mitad del siglo, desde la época de la violencia en el año 48 a hoy, tenemos 350,000 víctimas mortales. Es un número bastante grande para una población hoy de 48 millones de habitantes.
I'm not a huge fan of statistics, but I think it's sometimes, in order to give the dimensions of what has happened in our country, it is important to be able to go back over some key statistics, such as in the past half a century we've had over 350,000 people who've been killed in the Colombian conflict. The vast majority have been civilians, which is a huge number in a country of 48 million inhabitants.
10 millones de hectáreas de tierras despojadas. Es decir, que en 10 millones de hectáreas se sucedieron durante este tiempo los hechos más violentos y que la mayoría de la población tuvo que salir de sus lugares de origen, cambiar de cultura, cambiar de gastronomía, esconderse, porque en muchas ocasiones, lo sé porque a mí también me pasó, yo también soy desplazada de alguna manera internamente en Colombia, no poder hablar ni siquiera con su familia, simplemente por defender los derechos humanos o por decir la verdad de lo que estaba sucediendo.
We talk about over a similar period in Colombia we've had 10 million hectares of land that have been plundered and land that people have been driven off. That means huge numbers of people have been forced to move away, usually into urban centres. That's meant a huge loss of culture and of traditions, and it's also divided many families. I also speak as somebody who has been displaced around Colombia, internally displaced because of violence and threats against myself. That often means not being able, people who particularly have been defending the rights of their communities, defending human rights, not being able to speak to their families, not being able to go out in public. So this is the realities we are dealing with.
Por eso nosotros consideramos que esa memoria histórica es fundamental en cualquier proceso pedagógico. Si vamos a fortalecer el movimiento social, si vamos a reconstruir los tejidos rotos por la violencia, tenemos que tener claridad sobre qué fue lo que pasó y con qué intereses y quiénes estaban detrás de esos intereses.
So this is why for us, any part of our pedagogical work it's key to be focusing also on the historical memory of our own struggles and also of the violent processes which we have faced. Because if we are going to be able to reconstruct the social fabric, if we are going to be able to pull communities back together, then we have to be very clear about what has happened in the past and about why it happened and who was behind it.
Y porque a pesar de haber pasado 524 años después de la invasión española, británica y alemana a nuestro territorio latinoamericano, aún existen resistencias, aún la gente sale a las calles a protestar, aún hay movilización social.
And also, this is key. Key for us is also to understand why 524 years after the invasion of the Spanish and after the invasion of the British, we still see resistance. Our people have been resistant for all of that time. People still take to the streets, and there is still popular resistance to things that are being imposed upon us.
Esos 350,000 muertos son el tapete rojo para la implementación de 17 tratados de libre comercio en Colombia.
And what you can see here, there was 350,000 dead over the past 50 years. Ultimately, the cost of what we're seeing, which are all of these free trade agreements which the Colombian government has signed with countries from around the world.
Y son tratados de libre comercio que cuidan un modelo de desarrollo global, que defienden las grandes potencias, que cuidan un modelo de seguridad global y que cuidan un modelo educativo global. Porque para que haya el modelo económico que hoy tenemos, tiene que haber un modelo pedagógico que instrumentalice las diferentes áreas del conocimiento para que todos seamos como muñequitos, como maquinitas y correspondamos a ese modelo.
So these free trade agreements, as far as we are concerned, what they are doing is implementing this global model which we are up against, and they are taking care of it and facilitating this model. It's a model which is based not just on the economic side, it's also a security model and it's an educational model, because in order to have this globalized neoliberal model, you need an education system which facilitates this model. And you need an education system which seeks to turn us all into little puppets that will just not question and will go along with this model.
Cada que entra un nuevo tratado de libre comercio, se incrementa la pobreza, se incrementa el analfabetismo en Colombia. Y uno se pregunta, ¿por qué un tratado de libre comercio con Israel? ¿Colombia qué puede importar de Israel? Si estamos hablando de paz, si estamos hablando de desarme, si estamos hablando que las guerrillas van a renunciar a seguir en armas y vamos a iniciar un proceso de paz estable y duradera, ¿para qué queremos tratados de libre comercio con Israel? ¿Vamos a exportar maíz de Israel? Me pregunto.
So what we are seeing is that hand in hand, this model is increasing poverty within our country, and we are seeing illiteracy going up in our country. And you have to ask yourself, for example, why would Colombia need a free trade agreement with Israel? If we're going through a peace process, supposedly the guerrillas are about to hand over their weapons, we're supposedly going into a stable period of happiness and peace, then what could we possibly going to be importing from Israel? I don't think it's going to be corn.
En medio de ese contexto, que muy rápidamente, porque ya sé que me van a pasar ahorita el papelito de los 5 minutos, en medio de ese contexto se desarrolla el proceso pedagógico. Un poco a la luz de lo que decía Manfred Mavnif, a los colombianos o a los latinoamericanos, mejor, Nos tocó aprender a solfear en estado de alerta, hacer educación recogiendo los muertos, hacer educación en medio de los bombardeos, hacer educación en medio de la movilización. Y así fue como aprendimos entre los años 60, 70, animados por Paulo Freire, animados por Falsborda, un colombiano, por Umaña Luna, por Umaña Mendoza, quienes inspiraron todo el tema del humanismo social, que no podíamos desistir a la idea de tener una educación propia.
So this is the context, and I know that we're going to get the 5 minutes in a moment, so to try and talk a bit about our pedagogical process. We say, ¿qué fue que dijo? Magnifer says that in Latin America, the social movements, we have had to learn in the process of picking up our dead, and we have had to learn in the context of repression and learn under bombs, and we've had to educate ourselves with this reality and through this process. And this is what we've done since the 1960s and 70s. We are inspired by educators such as Paulo Freire from Brazil and the Colombians Orlando Falsborda, Umaña Luna, Umaña Mendoza, and we base ourselves in social humanism. And this is something that we are going to talk about in terms of the way our process has been impacted and influenced.
En este cuadro un poco se muestra cuál ha sido el recorrido pedagógico. Entre el 2000 y 2011, ante el cúmulo de casos, tuvimos que hacer talleres de prevención para que la gente no se dejara matar, de prevención y defensa de derechos humanos. O sea, ¿cómo puedo yo proteger mi vida? ¿Cómo tengo que esconderme? ¿A qué horas tengo que salir? ¿A qué horas tengo que llegar? ¿Cómo manejar la situación de persecución permanente? Y también cómo utilizar el derecho interno y el derecho internacional para poderme defender.
So in terms of the development up to what we now have in terms of the University of the Peoples, between the year 2000 and 2011, we started off basically trying to train people to stay alive, human rights prevention courses on things such as how do we communicate, how to know when to hide, when to come and go, how to raise the alert within communities, but also how to use legal mechanisms on a local level and also on a national and international level when necessary. And this was the start through workshops and diplomas, which were training people in social movements and in communities on these basic things.
Estos talleres eran talleres más específicos para trabajadores, para campesinos, para indígenas, y cada grupo andaba por su lado. Pero ahí pudimos identificar, en esa época estaba Mario en una de las grandes luchas que se dio en el país a favor en contra de la privatización de los servicios públicos, y entendimos que había que juntar, que los campesinos no podían ir por un lado y los indígenas por otro y los estudiantes por otro. Y comenzamos a pensar en algo más intercultural. Y ahí nace el Diplomado de Educación e Investigación en Derechos Humanos, que fue la antesala de la Universidad Intercultural y que nos permitió conocer, sin intentar que el indígena piense como el campesino como el indígena, una visión intercultural, cómo cada uno está defendiendo su territorio, su trabajo, sus derechos.
So in terms of early on, as we started these workshops, it was with different specific sectors. So we would do workshops with the indigenous, with the Afro communities, and we were based inside a trade union. We were in a struggle which Mario was part of against the privatization of public services in Cali. But we started to realize the need to unite and to bring different sectors together. That each was struggling and resisting alone, and there wasn't enough collaboration. And we realized that in the situation of repression and the paramilitary onslaught, that we couldn't be apart. And so this is where we started to develop a diploma program, a human rights diploma program, which brought all of these sectors together, activists from the different sectors, and put them in a room together. and it allowed us to see, it allows us to start to have a vision of what it could be to have all of these sectors work together. And this is where we started to develop our where we talk about interculturality, and this is where we started to see that this is where the strength was that we held.
En el 2012, entre el 2010 y 2012 pensamos que estos diplomados no podían seguir siendo autorizados o titulados por la universidad, por la academia o pública o privada, sino que nosotros mismos podíamos hacerlo, que las organizaciones sociales, indígenas, comunidades negras, podíamos hacer esos títulos porque el conocimiento estaba basado donde están las comunidades. Y comenzamos con la idea, todavía la gente piensa que estamos muy locos, es posible que sí, y cada vez lo vamos a estar más, pero que nosotros mismos podamos, a partir del conocimiento propio de las comunidades, hacer los planes de vida, los planes de transformación, que donde se hacen en el territorio, no es en un lugar distinto, ahí es donde se transforma realmente.
So from 2012, up until 2012, we had these diploma courses were given official certificates, were recognized by universities in the region. But from 2012, with the social movements who make up the sort of the group for the diplomas, we decided that we weren't going to continue seeking the certification from the universities. Why should we look for the official institutions to give this certification when actually the knowledge comes from the social movements ourselves, and the programs we had came from the social movements? So that's where we decided to say, well, why shouldn't the social movements be the ones who certify these courses? And some people thought we were crazy. Maybe we are, but from what we'd started to develop and to move on to the next phase was to try to work between the social movements to develop what we call life plans, planes de vida, which are the community's own plans for continuing their own life within their own territories and for defending their territories. And it's all about how we bring about this transformation and in a collective sense.
Y hay un debate aún interno entre las 30 organizaciones que hacemos parte de la universidad de si vamos a dar el salto de pelear con el Ministerio de Educación en Colombia para que nos permita que esos títulos sean avalados por el ministerio. Hay un grupo que dice que no necesitamos permiso para validar nuestros conocimientos, y hay otro grupo que dice que es importante porque los chicos, los jóvenes necesitan un título para luego escalar, ¿no?
But this is an ongoing debate. So within the 30 organizations that make up the University of the Peoples, we have one group who say why should we go and try and convince the Ministry of Education to give its stamp of approval for our social movement university, and then but there are a group who say, well, actually we need our young to have these certificates that can be useful for them. So it's not a debate that is finished.
La universidad transcurre en un lugar donde la gente tenga un espacio. Puede ser un garaje, puede ser una vereda, puede ser caminando. No necesariamente tiene un espacio físico como cualquier otra universidad, ¿no?
And it's a transient university. It's a university which doesn't have an actual site as such. We move it around. It's sometimes in the community, in the territories of the different social movements. Sometimes it might be in motion. It might be on a walk, which is part of our pedagogy, and this is part of our philosophy that we've developed with the movements.
El año pasado iniciamos con la primera cohorte, por llamarlo como lo llama la academia para que nos entendamos. Hay gente que dice tejido de conocimiento. Que tiene que ver con 3 programas. Los 3 programas son complementarios pero interdependientes, ¿sí? Entonces, el primero es derechos de los pueblos y modelos de desarrollo. Ahí se encuentran el modelo de desarrollo con la realidad, con esos derechos de las comunidades indígenas que dicen que no hay que hacer extractivismo, que a la madre tierra se le respeta, que no se puede sacar la madre tierra porque saquear la madre tierra, porque nos vamos a quedar en un futuro obviamente en el aire, sin respirar, sin oxígeno y...
Espera.
Ops, ya tenemos que terminar. Bueno, sí, pero
so with the cohort, to use the correct academic term, there's also a debate about whether we should use that language. But we've been developing the different courses with the first cohort. And these are the different thematic areas which are independent but complementary of each other. The first one is the program which is the rights of the peoples and development models, which is where we tried to work upon a collective understanding of what the development models means for people within the communities, and where that development model actually comes up against the realities of people in their communities. So whether we're talking about indigenous communities and how their own cosmovision and how their argument that you should leave natural resources in the soil would come up against the development model would fit within this program.
Y son los alumnos son indígenas, campesinos, comunidades afro, no necesariamente tienen que saber leer y escribir, simplemente vivir en su territorio y ser un buen activista, no necesariamente tienen que ser de 16 a 20 años, pueden ser de 70 y 80 años, porque así transcurre la vida de nuestras comunidades.
In terms of the students, there is no requirement on people to be able to read or write. It is about being members of their community and members of their movement. The same with regards to age. We have people from young teenagers, children, right up to people in their 70s and 80s, because that is how life occurs within our communities and our movements.
Estamos en 5 departamentos, Valle del Cauca, Cauca, Nariño, Huila, y zona cafetera, el eje cafetero que es Risaralda, Quindío, y esas son las organizaciones que hacemos parte de la universidad. Todas organizaciones que se movilizan permanentemente, hacen parte del Congreso de los Pueblos, hacen parte de la Minga de Resistencia Social y Comunitaria y comparten sus luchas también.
And so these are the 5 departments, the 5 regions across which we operate, and the different organizations who are part of the University of the Peoples. All of these organizations support each other's mobilizations, and we all form part of broader social movement alliances such as the People's Congress and the Minga. And this has meant that across the region we've strengthened each other's struggles and mobilizations.
Termino diciendo que esta es una de las zonas donde el conflicto armado ha dejado más víctimas. En esta zona está el Pacífico colombiano, los 17 tratados de libre comercio que les mostraba ahorita se van a implementar ahí con la Alianza Pacífico que viene desde Centroamérica hasta Colombia y donde se presentaron en estos últimos años los crímenes atroces, desmembramiento de víctimas y una acción de terror permanente.
And to finish saying that this area has been one of the worst in terms of the levels of violence and repression against our peoples. It's also the area which is key for lots of these free trade agreements because it contains the main port, and the vast majority of imports and exports come through this region, and a lot of the infrastructure projects are focused there. It's a region where we've seen some of the worst atrocities in recent history, such as people being dismembered alive, such as bombardment, etc. So it's been key in the conflict.
Thank you.
La relación es que la mayoría de organizaciones hacen parte del Congreso de los Pueblos y en ese sentido hemos construido históricamente el proceso pedagógico, ¿sí? El mismo Congreso de los Pueblos y la Minga de Resistencia, porque el Congreso es hijo de la Minga, utilizó esa metodología, caminando la palabra desde Santander de Quilichao, desde el Cauca hasta Bogotá, construyendo unidad temática y unidad estratégica. ¿Para qué? Para plantearse esto, que el modelo de desarrollo del Estado y las pedagogías propias y los planes de vida están en contravía. No, o sea, no podemos seguir con un modelo extractivista, que esa imagen nos muestra en qué está el modelo extractivista, explotación de recursos y explotación de población, cuando el Congreso de los Pueblos aquí se reúne en el Congreso de Tierra, Territorio y Soberanía y define líneas muy claras sobre autonomía alimentaria y sobre defensa de los territorios. Eso es parte de los mandatos del Congreso.
So in terms of Sebastian's question, that you can see in this, I think it's nicely summarized in this slide, that as I mentioned, the majority of the organizations that are part of the University of the Peoples are also part of this broader social movement alliance, which is the People's Congress, the Congreso de los Pueblos. And this is also a social movement alliance which has developed similar pedagogical processes in the same way. And this is around what we call it walking the word, but what we mean really is around social movements coming together to find strategic and thematic unity. So finding what are our points in common without having to necessarily all think the same and be the same and homogenize. So this is something that isn't just us, it is within the social movement in Colombia. And it's also something that when you do that, it becomes much clearer that you're talking about two development models and two notions of development which are completely opposed. One is the Colombian government's economic model, which is based on extractivism, which is based on neoliberalism, which is based on ultimately destruction of Mother Earth and of our territories. And the other one, which was produced through the People's Congress, through alliance of social movements, and which becomes clear, which is around autonomies for peoples, and it's based around the defense of territories and the defense of life and the defense of being able to remain in our territories.
Esta imagen yo creo que resume lo que es la minería a cielo abierto, la destrucción y las posibilidades de intercambio de semillas, que en Colombia ahora está penalizado tener semillas propias, solo se puede tener de Syngenta y de Monsanto, pero es eso, ¿no?
And so the photos that you can see on this slide show the difference. On the one side, you've got open cast mining, and this photo of the destruction which it does to our territory. And on the other side, you've got a social movement exchange of seeds event. And just to say that in Colombia now, so under the conditions of the free trade agreements, actually many of our traditional seeds are banned, and you're only allowed to buy seeds which are patented by multinational companies such as Monsanto.
En relación con los logros de la universidad, son varios, pero aún se está en el proceso. Y como también se decía por parte tuya hace un rato, o sea, estos procesos son en construcción y todos los días se está aprendiendo. No hay una receta, póngale azúcar, leche, sí, pero sí hay elementos importantes. Por ejemplo, uno, voy a mencionar que para nosotros es clave, y es tramitar los conflictos interétnicos. Porque todo este proceso de paz, toda esta situación que se ha vivido en los territorios de tensión con relación a lo que es el proceso de paz ha generado y ha exacerbado los conflictos entre afros, campesinos, indígenas, por diferencias también de pensamiento. Entonces la universidad ha posibilitado, si no solucionarlo, sí tramitarlo y dar el debate.
And in terms of the successes, it is still very early days in terms of the University of the Peoples, and it is very much still a process which is in construction. As we heard from Assis, there is no recipe. There's not. We can't just say that this is how it is and implement it. We are still learning and we are still constructing it all the day, every day. But one thing, there's a few elements that we could say we've seen some progress on. One is around starting to overcome some of the interethnic conflicts, which do exist. We've got the peace talks going on, but with between different groups, there haven't always been people haven't always seen eye to eye for different reasons, and there are different ways of thinking. And one of the things that we seek to do with this is to build unity through the diversity and to get people not necessarily coming to the same point of view, but overcoming these differences and being able to work together.
Y frente a los jóvenes, o sea, nosotros estamos convencidos que esto no lo estamos haciendo por nosotros o por los viejos solamente, también por nosotros, pero que para las futuras generaciones de Colombia queremos que esos planes de vida que hoy se tienen de respeto a la naturaleza, de defensa de la vida, sean un hecho y que ellos los puedan llevar adelante. Entonces hay un buen porcentaje de alumnos que son jóvenes y que realmente en ese intercambio intergeneracional se ha podido aprovechar el conocimiento de los sabios, de los viejos afros, de los viejos indígenas, de los viejos campesinos, para que los jóvenes también conozcan esa historia y no la desconozcan.
¿Y con la educación formal o el sistema formal?
Y con el sistema formal, pues en este momento nosotros somos de la idea de que vamos a esperar qué dice la próxima asamblea de la universidad, si vamos a tramitar con el Ministerio de Educación o seguimos siendo muy nosotros y muy autónomos.
So in terms of the youth and the involvement of youth in our processes, for us that's absolutely key. We've tried to focus a lot of our pedagogical work on getting as many young people involved as possible, because we at our stage we see that when we're talking about community life plans, when we're talking about the defence of territory, the defence of the environment, the defence of life, for us, this is about the future generations, and we need to sustain our struggles. This is why we think it's so important to have multiple generations, and we need to create these spaces so that when you've got our indigenous elders, so that when you've got our Afro-Colombian elders or our campesinos, that they are able to impart their knowledge upon the new generations. And then in terms of the relationship towards sort of more formal education, we're still debating around the relationship with the Ministry of Education, but at the moment there is no relationship.
Para que este sueño sea posible, los necesitamos a ustedes porque solos no podemos.
And for this to be a success, and for us to carry on building this, we need to all work together, because we can't do it ourselves.